Tatiana Prichanikova is a 34-year-old single mother who went to the hospital writhing in pain from a kidney stone.
And I started crying, screaming because it was so bad.
At the hospital, Tatiana got an IV, an MRI, a urine test, and exactly 4 ibuprofen pills. Oh, and they never actually removed the kidney stone.
They didn't give me more advices, nothing was taken care of.
After a short 3-hour hospital stay, Tatiana got a bill for $10,153.
You know, I cannot pay this bill right now.
Oh, you ain't heard nothing yet. Imagine for a moment you have to go to the hospital for a procedure. You've talked to your doctor, you're mentally, physically prepared, you undergo a successful procedure and awake to find yourself on the mend. Then you see the bill. Then you have a relapse thanks to something called drive-by doctoring, which in one case cost a patient over $100,000 for something they never once considered to be part of the treatment. Welcome to the dark side of what some doctors are doing to job the system and make out like real bandits. Pleasure to welcome back into MidPoint the Chief Medical Officer at Cooper University Healthcare, also one of the more popular radio talkers from the great KYW in Philadelphia, Dr. Anthony Mazzarelli. Dr. Maz, how are you, sir?
Great, good to be here.
Here we go. Let's get right to it. This was a New York Times article that started this whole discussion here. A patient who went to the hospital, 37 years of age. Let me just get the right numbers. I want to make sure I don't underestimate this. A spinal surgeon who assisted in a fusion procedure after the patient was anesthetized billed the patient $117,000 for out-of-network charges, 20 times what the primary surgeon received, and the patient had no idea that this was ever going to be on his bill. This is actually a lot more common than we want to believe, isn't it, Dr. Maz?
Well, I think it's outrageous. It's wrong. It's probably more common than we believe because it happening at all is more than we would ever want to believe. But it's not the predominant thing that happens. It is a particular problem when physicians do this, and it's wrong. I think there are mostly bad actors that are doing this, and it's not predominant within the healthcare system. But look, it is the perverse outcome of unaligned incentives within our healthcare system. It is a symptom of an overall problem that leads to people making these decisions. It should not be allowed. And it's outrageous that these physicians are gaming the system that way.
But here's the patient himself who said, quote, "I had no choice and no negotiating power." So then how does the patient, before you go in, let's just say you don't have any family, or even if you do have somebody with you, how do you make sure that this doesn't happen? And can you even make sure it doesn't happen?
Well, the first thing you do is you choose the right hospital. So at a hospital like this, where the physicians are not employed, where they're the in-network, out-of-network, totally different groups, they're going to have a higher opportunity for the rats to find a way to get the cheese. If you go to hospitals that are a teaching hospital, that have residents, that hospitals where the groups are mostly employed, you're going to have a lot more transparency, and it makes it a lot less likely that these are happening. It doesn't mean that you don't have a high-quality surgery in these other places, but this gamesmanship with respect to the healthcare system is a problem. As we start to transition a healthcare system from fee for service and fee for volume to fee for value, you're going to have people having to do these gamesmanships to hold on to create the same revenue, and we need to stop these things before they arise.
Isn't the bigger problem here getting the hospitals to answer your questions? Because I know people who've been involved in the hospital system and patients, you can't get answers. You're told to go ahead and ask what you're going to get. You're told to ask about your bill, but the hospitals and the doctors make it such a runaround. You've got to get to 37 people on 43 different phone calls. By the time that happens, you're 10 years past the operation.
Well, here's the scary thing. The hospitals and the doctors are as confused of the bills as the consumers are. You got to remember, every time you go to a hospital, you typically get 2 bills. You get one bill from the hospital or the facility and another bill for the professional fees of the physicians, like this article talks about. And the two may not necessarily have a relationship with each other. A lot of physicians practice out in the community and they have privileges to be in a hospital, but there's no money being exchanged between the hospital and the physician. There are 2 separate entities doing 2 separate billing. So it'd be very hard for a hospital to answer questions about what's going to happen with the physicians. It is, like I said before, a symptom of a bigger disease. I mean, I think that this article starts off with a very valuable lesson, but it does a little bit of an overreach and oversimplifying the problem. I think I now call it sort of medical pricing porn. that the New York Times has an article every couple months that shows outrageous charge master pricing. And they're right, it is outrageous, but they act like it is the problem. And ultimately, it's not the problem. It's a symptom of bigger problems in our system.
And by the way, according to NerdWallet estimates for 2013, 1.5 million Americans declare bankruptcy. 60% of the medical bills prompt U.S. bankruptcies. Is this an Obamacare issue or simply just something that's been attached to medical care for decades?
Oh, this has been, having personal debt be tied to medical bills has been a problem for years. It's one of the things that the Obama administration was saying was a reason that we needed to have some kind of healthcare reform. So I don't think you can blame Obamacare on that.
All right, a couple of minutes we have left here. Let's spin to something that's interesting, and of course it speaks a lot to what's been going on in the National Football League, what we've been hearing a lot about domestic violence. A great comment made by Joe Concha on Mediaite. He's been on our show before. Hope Solo, the female soccer star, she herself has been in trouble, facing domestic violence charges from an episode over the summer. She's accused of punching her sister and her 17-year-old nephew at a late-night party. We didn't hear anything about that. It really is something that needs to be addressed on both sides of the sexual issue, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting. So you have Ray Rice, who's now indefinitely suspended, and last week, Hope Solo takes the field to have her record-breaking 73rd or 74th shutout in a 4-0 win over Mexico, in which Hope Solo, like you said, had 2 counts of domestic violence in June. She cracked a broomstick over the head of her sister and attacked her 17-year-old nephew. But something about it seems different, and I think it's easy to say, hey, it's a double standard, double standards are bad. But I have to admit to you, Ed, that there seems something about Hope Solo that makes it seem less outrageous than when you talk about Ray Rice.
How so?
That's a double. I know I'm supposed to tell you if I'm here with a microphone in front of me that I know, but I can tell you a lot of people, particularly callers on my show, have trouble articulating it, but it definitely has something to do with gender. In other words, yes, it's a double standard. But some people, and I have to say I lean this way, say, yeah, but it feels kind of okay. What is wrong with us? Am I sexist for thinking that? But there's something about Hope Solo's situation and her being a female and what she's doing to another female and to a male that's much bigger than her that somehow feels different than what Ray Rice did to his wife. And I don't know if it's because of gender or it's because Ray Rice, and let's be clear, didn't get suspended from the NFL because he punched his wife. He got suspended indefinitely because people saw a video of him punching his wife. And that may be something that's different as well.
She's pleaded not guilty. Trial is set for November. Dr. Maz, one of these days, you and I got to get on the airwaves, and we got to have this out because that would be fun. Always a pleasure, my friend. KYW Radio in Philadelphia. We'll talk to you again, Dr. Maz. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, next hour on MidPoint, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That tells you something critical in the new fight against ISIS. And after the break, News Call takes us to the battlefront.